little bit of a shuffle that raised the question of whether we were going to actually see the Supreme Court on this issue. And if people are interested, we can talk about that. But we're expected to reach the Supreme Court by the end of this year on this question again. So over 5.5 years, this effective and speedy remedy is about to reach the court the third time, and the 350 plus men detained in Guantanamo have still, not a single one of them has had a hearing. So I just want to mention quickly some of the concrete effects of what the denial of judicial review has meant. It means that there are innocent people being detained, and there is no pressure on the government to be able to release people in a speedy way, or to be able to effectively review the reasons for the detention or the evidence, if there is evidence of people's detention. So there's dozens of people who have been even cleared for release by the US government, and they're still detained in Guantanamo some months or years after their detention. There were people who were held through this makeshift administrative review process in Guantanamo as non-enemy combatants. Some of them were held for over 2 years after they received a non-enemy combatant determination. In 2002, the year that Guantanamo was established for this purpose, a CIA report said, and I quote, "A substantial number of the men detained at Guantanamo are either low-level militants or simply innocents in the wrong place at the wrong time." That's a CIA report after an evaluation of what was going on at Guantanamo in 2002. And by the US's own records, and by a report that was done looking at the allegations that were made and the information that was available from this administrative review process, only 5% of the men detained in Guantanamo were even captured by US forces. 86% were captured in Afghanistan or Pakistan at a time where the US was leafleting the countries with flyers saying that they would provide tremendous bounties for people who were turned over. So I have a flyer here, which I can put in the back and you can look at, but it says, "You can receive millions of dollars for helping the anti-Taliban force catch al-Qaeda and Taliban murderers. This is enough money to take care of your family, your village, your tribe for the rest of your life." And it goes on. So you can imagine some of the people were captured were people who were caught in tribal rivalries, people who were foreigners who were picked up at a time where they didn't have a sense of what was going on and caught up in the fog of war. So one of the effects of the denial of any sort of judicial review is that innocent people are being detained and there's no review for this detention. Another is that there's no review of the conditions, which means essentially that the government can hold people in whatever conditions they want to hold people in. So the men detained in Guantanamo from, I'm losing the timekeeper here, getting towards the end, have been transferred to super maximum security confinement. Very severe confinement conditions, transferred in January of this year. So these are people who are held in complete isolation without access to anything. And you have to remember that these are people who've already been detained for over 5 years with no charge and no prospect of being charged. So I'm going to give you one quick example of someone who was a refugee, who was fleeing persecution, was clearly caught up in the wrong place at the wrong time. Half of the people that he was caught up with have actually been classified as non-enemy combatants and released. He was cleared for release at least months ago and probably years ago. When he saw his lawyer only a couple weeks after being transferred to this condition, he said, "Tell my wife to remarry, she should consider me dead." He was someone who lost all hope being transferred to these conditions, and you don't hear about it, and there's very limited ability to be able to challenge this without any sort of a judicial review. And the last that I want to mention is that there's limited ability to review and challenge the treatment and transfer. So we know that there are people who have been transferred to countries, including Libya, Tunisia, and other countries, where these individuals, because of their individualized situations, were at risk of torture or severe persecution. It's illegal by international law and by domestic law to do this, but every court that we've gone to since the passage of the Military Commissions Act has said, we don't have jurisdiction. We recognize that it's undisputed. We do not have jurisdiction to be able to do anything. It is at the executive's discretion. So because of congressional acquiescence and a limited public outcry, the administration still sees Guantanamo as an acceptable avenue and a viable alternative to the rule of law. And in fact, over the last year, almost 20 people have actually been transferred into Guantanamo. These people who were transferred from secret detention facilities and from an operation known as Operation Enduring Freedom, Horn of Africa. And so at the root of this issue, I just want to emphasize that Guantanamo exists to push and test the limits of executive power. And this is exactly what habeas corpus stands for, is an ability to check that executive power and make sure that it is not limitless. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the discussion with all of you.